Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Ba'ishim, Rakah Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Ba'ishim Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'll be reading from an article on the economiccollapseblog.com titled, Killed by the Coronavirus Lockdowns. Thousands of U.S. businesses that were shut down will be closed permanently. This economic downturn is turning out to be far deeper and far more severe than most experts were originally anticipating. More than 22 million Americans have filed claims for unemployment benefits, and economists are telling us that the U.S. economy is contracting at the fastest rate that we have seen since the Second World War. We are already starting to see some high-profile companies move towards bankruptcy, but the real story is what is happening to thousands upon thousands of small and mid-sized businesses because of the lockdowns. Many of them were barely surviving even before this pandemic, and now these lockdowns have delivered a death blow. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 4. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding or working is low, which is what we'll be reading about in that article. Many small and mid-sized businesses are temporarily or permanently shut down, and they've laid off a lot of their workers. And a lot of these larger corporate businesses have begun filing for bankruptcy due to this coronavirus lockdown. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, people waking up early and going and trying to find a new job, but not being able to. Hence why you've got more than 22 million Americans filing for unemployment benefits. And another example of people rising up at the voice of the bird is people trying to get to these food banks as early and as quickly as possible to get their hands on some food before they run out. In a video I did the other day, I talked about how down in San Antonio, Texas, people were lining up at 2 a.m. at these food banks to get their hands on some food. And all the daughters of music shall be brought low. The entertainment, the bread and circuses being taken away from the people. You had the NBA suspend the entire season, Coachella, which is a music festival, getting postponed to October, South by Southwest, which has a music component to it, being canceled, and down here in New Orleans, French Quarter Fest and Jazz Fest being canceled. Whatever your opinion is of this whole coronavirus situation, there's one thing you can't deny, is that it's getting shit done. You've got businesses shutting down, people losing their jobs, economies around the globe moving towards collapse, and civil unrest brewing due to people getting fed up having to stay cooped up in their houses. With the way things are looking, this is Esau Edom making his move towards implementing his New World Order, because you've also got talks of mass vaccinations and digital currencies by these major governments, which we know is just a stepping stone towards the mark of the beast, which is the RFID/NFC microchip implant. And once the elites of these Edomites mandatorily implement the microchip implant, shortly thereafter, Yahushai HaMashiach, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, is going to return to save the elect of his people and his people only. The true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and put the final nail in the coffin of the rulership of you heathens, chiefly the Edomites. And I know you sincere Akim are as anxious as I am to get out of Esau Edom's captivity. The restaurant industry is a perfect example. Prior to the pandemic, there were more than 1 million restaurants in the United States, and about half of them were independent. Those independent restaurants employed approximately 11 million workers, and now the vast majority of those workers have been laid off. Once the lockdowns are over, it would be wonderful if all of those independent restaurants would spring back to life, but the results of a recent survey suggests that simply is not going to happen. In fact, that survey found that 28% of all independent restaurants are probably not going to survive if the lockdowns last for another month. and you've got the authorities talking about these lockdowns lasting for 18 months. A survey released by the James Beard Association found independent restaurants laid off 91% of their hourly employees and nearly 70% of salary employees as of April 13th, double-digit increases in both categories since March. The poll of 1,400 small and independent restaurants found 38% have closed temporarily or permanently, and 77% have seen their sales drop in half or worse. Perhaps most troubling, 28% of restaurants said they don't believe they can survive another month of closure, and only 1 out of 5 are certain they can sustain their businesses until normal operations can resume. 28% of 500,000 is 140,000, and so if these lockdowns are not lifted soon, we could be facing a scenario in which tens of thousands of independent restaurants are lost forever. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low. And I know people who have run restaurants and bars, and that's a very hard business venture to get into, because for like the first 3 years, you're operating at a loss before you start seeing any profits. So those numbers aren't hard to believe. I knew one guy who opened up a bar, and after 1 year, he went out of business. Of course, a lot of restaurants that do reopen will face a really tough struggle because fear of the coronavirus is going to keep customers away for the foreseeable future. So even if all of the lockdowns were lifted tomorrow, the restaurant industry would still not fully recover. Sadly, the same could be said for the fitness industry. In fact, we just learned that one of the biggest fitness chains in the nation is getting ready to file for bankruptcy. Gym chain 24 Hour Fitness is working with advisors at investment bank Lazard and law firm Weil, Gotshal, and Mange to weigh options, including a bankruptcy that could come as soon as the next few months, people familiar with the matter told CNBC. The chain is grappling with a heavy debt load, deteriorating performance, and a coronavirus pandemic that forced it to shut its more than 400 clubs. Yes, a certain segment of the population is quite eager to resume all of their normal pre-pandemic activities, but even a 20 or 30% drop-off in revenue will be fatal for many gyms. And the truth is that a lot of people are simply not going to be in the mood to share exercise equipment with others for a long time to come. The entertainment, tourism, and retail industries have also been hit extremely hard by this pandemic. The other day, I was quite stunned when I learned that Neiman Marcus is reportedly ready to file bankruptcy, and Neiman Marcus is one of the big boys out there. Neiman Marcus Group, one of the largest retailers in the United States, is reportedly ready to file bankruptcy amid the COVID-19 pandemic after defaulting millions in bond payments last week and furloughing 14,000 employees. Neiman Marcus would become the first major U.S. department store to crumble amidst the economic setbacks from the coronavirus outbreak. No, things are definitely not going to be returning to normal in America, and there will be a lot more big corporate names among the victims in the days to come. At this point, even some of the most prominent corporations in the entire country are indefinitely sidelining their workers. Indefinite furloughs began this week for more than 100,000 Disney, Best Buy, and CarMax workers as businesses make cuts to survive the coronavirus pandemic and subsequent mandatory closures. But most Americans are not in any position to handle indefinite furloughs. In fact, one survey discovered that a whopping 50% of all Americans will run through their savings by the end of April. One of the largest concerns on most homeowners' minds right now is how they are going to pay bills, specifically their monthly mortgage payments. 50% of Americans reported their savings will run out by the end of April. Prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, 30% of homeowners had less than $1,000 in an emergency fund, with 22% reporting they didn't have enough in savings to cover their mortgage payments for 1 month. And that just goes to show that these stimulus checks are all BS. The people that have gotten these stimulus checks have probably already gone through most of it just paying for bills, while you've got these big corporations out here getting billions of dollars in stimulus money. Just like during the last recession, countless numbers of Americans will go from living a comfortable middle-class lifestyle to being desperately needy in just a matter of weeks. I have been writing a lot about the absolutely massive lines that we have been seeing at food banks all over the nation, and we just witnessed another example in Miami. In one of the wealthiest areas of the entire city, vehicles were lined up for miles as people waited patiently to receive handouts from a local food bank. Talk about a Norman Rockwell painting idea come to life. A parade of cars filled with hungry people in Miami, smack dab in the middle of two of the city's ritziest hotels. Check out this surreal scene down in Miami Beach, where a mile-long line of cars arranged in a giant U-curve in between the W Hotel and Setai Hotel, two of MB's most high-end go-to spots for celebrity out-of-towners like Kim K, Justin Bieber, and more. You can see photos from the event right here, and if you look closely, you will see that some of those vehicles are quite nice. Here's that article from TMZ. Miami Beach food banks, mile-long line of cars waiting in between luxury hotels. And it's a very nice area. It's on the beach, so it's prime real estate. Some really nice cars. And who are the main people trying to get food from these food banks? Edomites, or so-called white people. Esau Edom's hurting out here, and it's a beautiful sight to see. As it says in Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 25, verse 7, there be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and the 10th I will utter with my tongue. A man that hath joy of his children, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemy. And the main enemy of the Israelites are you Edomites. You Edomites are living in the last seconds of your rulership, and there's nothing you can do to change that. The only thing you can do is sit back and wait for the judgment of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai to truly befall you. As I have warned so many times over the years, if you don't have any sort of a financial cushion, you can suddenly find yourself in a whole lot of trouble when disaster finally strikes. That's it with this article. But now I'm going to play a quick YouTube video on the Lex 18 News channel titled, McConnell Thinks States Should Consider Bankruptcy.
The Senate recently approved almost $500 billion in funding for small businesses, hospitals, and COVID-19 testing. But Democrats had also pushed for funding to help state and local governments. Kentucky's own Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he thinks the federal government should not bail out local governments. LEX 18's Alex Valverde joins us now from outside of Senator McConnell's Lexington office with more in this coronavirus coverage.
Senator McConnell had some tough words to say when it comes to providing aid for state and local governments during this time. He said Republicans are not interested in, quote, replacing their revenue and solving their pension problems. Instead, Senator McConnell said he's open to the idea of allowing states to declare bankruptcy. In a radio interview yesterday, he said it would save some cities, and he claims state and local governments are in their positions right now because of decisions they made in the past. Democratic leaders were shocked at his words.
Marie Antoinette said, let them eat cake. Mitch McConnell said, maybe let them file for bankruptcy.
This is the time, in a moment of crisis unlike any our country has faced in at least 100 years, to suggest it's a good thing for states to go bankrupt? I would say two things in reaction, Senator, and I'm not sure you're watching. I suspect you're not. Number one, come on, man. That is completely and utterly irresponsible. There's no level of responsibility associated with that, and I don't care what party you're in.
Senator McConnell has encouraged state governors to take steps toward reopening the economy, including allowing hospitals to take back up doing elective surgeries. In Lexington,
Not only are businesses collapsing, but local and state governments as well. With each passing day, things are getting bleaker and bleaker for the good old United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great. And I'm going to close it out in Isaiah 24, verse 7 through 11. The new wine mourneth, the vine languisheth, all the merry-hearted do sigh. The mirth of the tabrets ceaseth, the noise of them that rejoice endeth, the joy of the harp ceaseth, the daughters of music being brought low. Entertainment, like these sporting and music events taken away from the people, and people no longer able to go to these bars or restaurants and sit down and have a drink or eat food with friends and family. They shall not drink wine with a song. Strong drink shall be bitter to them that drink it. People cracking under this coronavirus lockdown and drowning out their sorrows with liquor and drugs. During this lockdown, there's been an uptick in domestic abuse cases and suicides. The city of confusion is broken down, and we know that Babylon in the Hebrew means confusion. And as we read in that article, the city of confusion is definitely being broken down. Every house is shut up, that no man may come in. Back in Ecclesiastes 12:4. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low. There is a crying for wine in the streets, all joy is darkened, the mirth of the land is gone. And that crying for wine in the streets is people looking for answers as to why all this is happening. And the only answers you're going to find are in these scriptures. And even then, the only people that are going to understand it are the elect, the 144,000 and the rest of the righteous 1/3. As for 2/3 of you Israelites and you heathens, the only answers you're going to get is death and destruction from Yahweh Ba'ishim Yahushai once he really opens up on you for your wickedness. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathens, chiefly Esau, Edom. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.